Now, Anzac Day was commemorated brilliantly today right around the country and across the globe, of course. Crowds turned out for dawn services in our national capital and major cities around Australia and New Zealand, not to mention the suburbs and small towns in every nook and cranny of our continent. Anzac parades were back too, with crowds of citizens applauding and respecting our armed service veterans and, of course, our serving personnel. I got to take my little boys to the parade in Sydney today, which was just wonderful. It's hard to describe, really, isn't it? That feeling of pride, sadness and gratitude, but it's very special. And overseas, of course, at Anzac Cove on the Gallipoli Peninsula and in the fields of northern France, the sacred day was recognised and shared, as well as in other places right around the world, wherever Aussies and Kiwis gather. The garrison town of Townsville in far north Queensland turned it on too, of course, and I caught up with the local federal Liberal MP there, Phil Thompson. He's a veteran as well as a politician, and I asked him what it's like to fill both those roles on Anzac Day.
Well, I'm always a veteran first. It's an emotional day for me. I remember my mates that were killed in battle and those that have succumbed to their war within back here on home soil. Today was a very big day for a lot of veterans around Australia, and like myself, I took some time to reflect, and I've come down the RSL. You may even hear some bagpipes in the background. We're coming around each other and supporting each other today.
Sadly, our COVID overreach put paid to a lot of Anzac Day ceremonies and services over the past few years, but people are back now and really supporting Anzac Day right across the country.
Yeah, we had thousands of people at the dawn service. Our march, there wasn't a free place to sit throughout the march. A lot of community support for veterans and our still serving Defence Force personnel. I know that Townsville is a large garrison city, really wraps around our people, and I've seen that throughout the country. Watching the TV today, I've been able to see lots of parades, lots of marches. And it's a time where we reflect on the freedoms that we have, and they are because of hard-fought battles previously. So today we remember, we reflect, and we look forward to the future where we walk together to ensure that our veterans are best supported as much as we can.
Tell me about the Defence Strategic Review now in your capacity as Assistant Shadow Minister for Defence. Now, your spokesman, your Chief Spokesman on Defence, Andrew Hastie, has been highly critical of this review, but isn't it a good thing that Labor is continuing to beef up our Defence Force equipment and our Defence Force personnel, and also they're focusing on the threat of China and on cyberspace and on new missile programs?
Yeah, I'll start with how I feel as a veteran and then as a local member. So in Townsville, we have a mechanised battalion, the 3rd Battalion Royal Australian Regiment. And yesterday, on their Kapyong Day, which is one of their most sacred battles that they celebrate every year, they got told pretty much that they won't be mechanised anymore. We've seen cuts to the infantry fighting vehicles. I think it was absolutely disgraceful that this Prime Minister and this Minister for Defence made the decision to announce this on the day before Anzac Day. I think it's absolutely out of step. I think it's tone deaf, and I think it leaves the North worse off than where it should be, because you need mechanised infantry battalions. We've seen in conflict around the world that mechanised infantry they're a battle changer. So I'm very upset with the announcement on that, especially when they want to talk about the North being so integral to our nation's security.
Look, sure, we should have always been doing more sooner in defence spending, but of course the Coalition was in government for almost a decade up until a year ago, and surely Labor should be given credit for at least sticking in the same direction and promising to increase spending and, of course, boost numbers of personnel and upgrade our military equipment.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of our missile capability, but I don't think they're keeping steady pace. And because if they were, in last September, Land 400 Phase 3 was supposed to be announced, and that was for 450 infantry fighting vehicles. That's now been slashed to 129. So I don't think they're keeping steadfast on where the Coalition was. Do I think we should have greater spend within defence and defence industry? Yeah, of course I do. I've fought on the front line. I absolutely understand what you need to get into the fight, to be able to win the battle, but also maintain security back here on home soil. So I do think we welcomed, and Andrew Hasty said it as well, we're not against reviews at all. We're against cuts. And for Northern Australia and for Townsville, I believe what we've seen through this DSR is more cuts, and the soldiers on the ground from the 3rd Battalion, who are a mechanised battalion, are very upset because they haven't been consulted, and now they don't know, their future, what their future is within the mechanised infantry world.
Just one more question, Phil, because it's something we're having a look at tonight. I want to ask you about the John Schumann song, I Was Only 19. Now, you served in East Timor and you served and were wounded in Afghanistan. Does that song about the Vietnam War, does that still resonate with soldiers of the 21st century?
Yes, it does. I deployed to Afghanistan when I was 21, a little bit older than 19, but it definitely resonates. It brings a tear to my eye. And most people that have served at a young age, definitely for their first deployments. And if you're looking at Afghanistan or Iraq, you're seeing soldiers that who are quite young deploying. So when they hear, we were only 19, and I was only 19 song, it cuts a chord, and it's something that was played last night when I was out at 3 RER for their Kapyong Day. It was played this morning at the parade in Townsville. So, yeah, it resonates, and I think it'll resonate for many decades to come.
Phil Thompson, thank you for your service, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.